Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, uh, Very welcome to today's conference. I think there are two prejudices that today's event just reinforced those two prejudices. One was about the Afghans' lack of punctuality, which we are universally known to be not very punctual. I think the fact that we start 45 minutes late just reinforce that really who we are. The second thing about the state of UK US special relationships. I'm coming from London's, and in London, this kind of weather for us is summer times. Is summertime, but since 6 o'clock in the morning, I have been receiving call from my American colleagues that there's going to be flooding, there's going to be raining, so we will be late. So when I look at the window, there was hardly any rains with British standards. So it seems that when it comes to rains tolerance, I think there is room to improvement for Americans to tolerate rains to meet the British standards of rainy weathers. And of course, we have President Zelensky visiting the White House, which would provide additional scapegoat, President Putin's invasion of Ukraine, which all contribute to the fact that we are going to start late. I'm very sorry for all of you who, particularly our guests who come 8:30. Some of them be here before, but I hope we will compensate, inshallah, in our future events to be more punctual than today's years. I think so. When we start introducing that we are going to have a conference on post-Islamism, I often receive this question: what do you mean post-Islamism? The last person that I was asked this question was a lady who works at University of George Washington. And when I explained to her that there's a conference today about post-Islamism, she says, what do you mean by post-Islamism here? And I'm sure some of us in this room have been asking ourselves, what does that mean, post-Islamism? Particularly since it seems that we are at the peak of the Islamism driven political development. The fact that the Taliban's back in powers, the fact that we have a supreme leader of Islamic Republic of Iran's claiming victories, the fact that the Hamas, all this situation, there's hardly any indication that we passed the stage of post-Islamism to enter the stage of post-Islamism. So it seems that we are really either too ambitious to talk about post-Islamism or a little bit too naive to discuss about something that seems to be very alien to the world's reality. So I just give you some indication that why we are still struggling with the stage of Islamism, let alone to understand the concept of post-Islamism. To begin with, the very notion of Islamism, there's hardly any consensual agreement. What does Islamism means? If you ask 40, 50 people of our ears, I'm sure you would get at least 30, 40 different definition of Islamism. And I'll give you some indications that what does Islamism means before starting the post-Islamism. I just was checking some of my X or Twitters to see where the Islamism comes. Kind of play the first slides. So as you can see, this is the typical German's sense of humor. Dr. Spenta is here. Just from last 2 weeks ago, tweeted by Deutsche Welle. In our previous tweets, the video included the subtitle of Islamic terrorism. It should have read Islamist terrorism. As far as the Deutsche Welle is concerned, there is a world of difference between Islamic terrorism and Islamist terrorism. That is the Deutsche Welle editorial. Well, let's see what the Indian members of parliament has to say. Is a member. I am proud to be Islamist, but not Islamic. No Islamists can be radicals. So this is the a view from Indian that who proudly claim to be Islamists. Now coming to the United States, President Trump's nominated vice president, who described a UK Islamist country. Why there is Islamist countries? Because there are too many Muslims live now in the UK who are Islamic. So conceptually, really, there is disagreement. There is a confusion about what does Islamic means to us, and it's not only about the so-called educated class in the West who are not sure what does that mean, what's the difference. But also, if you ask a layman in any Muslim majority capital, can you differentiate between Islamist and Islamic? They will say, what do you mean? They say we're all Muslims. Yes. So at the level of the conceptual characterization of the concept of Islamism, rarely there is a consensus. There's a lot of confusion, but it's not only about the kind of an philosophical, intellectual disagreement about the term of Islamism. In terms of policy implication, we can say major contradiction and confusion. And I would like to show you two slides, a little bit provocative, but again, I'm leaving on Sundays, so FBI can say what do. This is the latest from FBI, our neighbor somewhere nearby, about Sirajuddin Haqqani seeking information. There's a couple of millions for anyone who provide information that which led to his successful prosecution, Sirajuddin Haqqani. And it is on the FBI's list. Next slides. This is Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani meeting the president of the UAE as late as a few weeks ago as a special guest of the UAE. We know that in this His Excellency was on official visit to Washington last week, met in Washington in the White House. But he was also so Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani, who is on the FBI most wanted list, happened to be a new friend of President of UAE, who happened to be U.S. Strategic partners. Again, I'm not blaming anyone. I want to reflect a genuine challenge to come up with the terms of Islamism of different manifestation, both intellectually and policy-wise. Therefore, I think to come to discuss the notion of the post-Islamism when we are struggling to understand what does Islamism means, but perhaps post-Islamism might help us to clarify Islamism. Yes, and that is, we know that Islamism is a political ideology of the 20th centuries, and that the central piece of Islamism, we have the modernists, Orientalists, who advocate that the problem of Muslim majority is Islam. If we reform the Islams, everything will be fine. Then Islamists come and they say that the solution is Islam. Solution is Islam's. Therefore, we can solve all our problems by embracing Islam. But perhaps 1 century, both Islamists and the modernist critic of Islam, they have failed to convince us that Islam should be the central point of reference. Really, is it the time that we should think of Islam not as part of the problem, but also not part of the solutions? not part of the solution. So, and I think my understanding of term of post-Islamism is to enter a conversation that to see Islam not as part of the problem of Muslim majorities and as some Orientalists advocate, but the same should not be seen as part of the solutions of the Muslim majority. So Islam has to be where it belongs to, a kind of a spiritual part of our identity. And in the broader sense, I think that, again, Islamism, post-Islamism cannot and should not be divorced from ongoing conversation about global threats. We know in Washington, this is a city that now they are discussing of a post-liberal world. Post-liberal world that they challenge, they critique the very essence of liberalism and entering a kind of a post-secularism world, the Western idea. Therefore, the return of religions in the Western's political and intellectual discourse. Therefore, I think the post-Islamism in the context of post-liberalism, they are all part of the conversation of Muslim majorities and of other colleagues. Yes. And I hope today's conversation will bring a fresher idea, both at the intellectual levels and also hopefully at the policy levels. So once again, I'm very grateful to all of you who accept our invitation, particularly our esteemed speakers who comes from a really different part of the world. We have speakers, colleagues who travel all the way from Egypt, from Morocco, from Germany, from Australia, from Canada, from other states in United States. So we are very grateful to all of you to accept our invitation. And I'm also very grateful to the LU School of International Affairs for hosting us, providing their facility, their advice, the guidance for AISS to have its first U.S. events. So I'm very grateful that, and also I'm very grateful to our colleagues, National Endowment for Democracy, that has been helping us from 2012 onward. We are very grateful today. We have a new partners, IDEA International, that has been helping us with organizing this conference. So we are grateful to our new colleagues, partners, and more importantly, I'm very grateful to my colleagues in AISS who made possible today's events. And I hope today's conversation will be an stimulating conversation. And once again, I apologize for very late start of the conference, which was beyond our control. Again, absolving of responsibility. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I look forward to listening to all of you. Thank you, all of you.